You always thought that you overthink because you feel too much, right? Hello, this is the channel Brutolosophy, and in this video I'm going to explain why you were wrong. Let's start by dismantling the belief that supports almost everything you call overthinking. You tend to assume that excessive thinking is a sign of emotional depth, heightened sensitivity, maybe even above average intelligence. When you catch yourself ruminating, analyzing scenarios, replaying conversations, anticipating outcomes, the automatic conclusion is, I think like this because I feel too much. It sounds logical, but it isn't true. What happens in most cases is the opposite. You think too much because you are not feeling enough. Before you reject this, slow down. I know that in your subjective experience what shows up is mental discomfort, anxiety, tension, a sense of internal overload, and you call that emotion. But cognitive discomfort is not the same as processed feeling. Thinking in circles is not feeling. It is, precisely, an efficient way to avoid feeling. Have you noticed how obsessive thinking almost always revolves around the same points? The same conversation, the same mistake, the same possibility of rejection, the same doubt. If this were real feeling being lived through, it would have an arc. It would arise, reach a peak, and over time, transform. Processed emotions change. Ruminative thoughts repeat. Why? Because they are not resolving anything. They are occupying space. When you say, I can't stop thinking about this, what is usually happening is that you are not allowing the full emotional experience to take place. You stay at the level of mental control. Direct question. What do you think would happen if you stopped explaining, justifying, analyzing, and simply felt what is there? Fear, sadness, anger, shame. Most people don't stop thinking because that feels too dangerous. You might argue that you already feel all of this, that you already feel anxiety, tightness in the chest, restlessness. But notice the difference. Those are physiological symptoms of tension, not elaborated feelings. Truly feeling involves allowing an emotion to have meaning, direction, and internal consequence. It involves admitting things you prefer to keep vague. Overthinking is an elegant way of admitting nothing clearly. Let's break another common assumption, the idea that thinking is always an active, productive act. In clinical practice, overthinking is almost always passive. It does not create decisions, it does not generate action, it does not produce change. It fills time and gives the sensation that something is being done, when in fact, something is being avoided. Simple question. After hours of thinking, what actually changes in your behavior? Usually, nothing. And that is not an accident. You might partially recognize the logic. Thinking helps me protect myself, anticipate risks, avoid mistakes. Yes, thinking has that function. But when thinking turns into a closed circuit, it stops being protection and becomes anesthesia. It keeps you away from direct experience, and direct experience is always more uncomfortable than speculation. Think about relationships. How many times have you gotten stuck analyzing messages, tones of voice, response times, trying to understand what the other person meant? You call this sensitivity. But notice what's missing. The clear feeling of insecurity, desire, fear of rejection. Instead of feeling, I want this and I might lose it, you think, what does this mean? Thinking steps in to avoid emotional exposure. The same thing happens at work. You think too much before acting, mentally rehearse scenarios, anticipate criticism. It looks like prudence. Often, it's just a way of avoiding contact with the basic sensation. Fear of failing, fear of exposure, fear of not being enough. Thinking gives the illusion of control. Feeling reveals vulnerability. Direct question. Do you really believe that if you thought even more, this would be solved? If the answer were thinking, you would already have solved it. The fact that the cycle continues shows that the problem is not a lack of analysis, but a refusal to go through the emotional experience that analysis is trying to bypass. Another belief that needs to be broken. The idea that feelings are diffuse, chaotic, impossible to deal with. That's a convenient narrative. In practice, feelings are data. They inform limits, desires, frustrations. What makes them unbearable is not their intensity, but the clarity they demand. Feeling implies recognizing losses, admitting needs, accepting that not everything is negotiable. You might think, if I stop thinking, I'll fall apart. This is a common fantasy. What usually happens is the opposite. When compulsive thinking decreases, simpler and more honest emotions appear. Not comfortable, but organized. Sadness instead of diffuse anxiety. Anger instead of nebulous guilt. Localized fear instead of constant tension. Notice how overthinking mixes everything together. You don't know exactly what you feel, you just know you feel bad. That is not emotional depth, it is emotional confusion. And confusion is ideal territory for the mind to take over. The mind loves confusion because it can operate there without committing to decision. Let's take a concrete example. Imagine someone who ended a relationship. Instead of feeling the loss, the loneliness, the frustration, this person spends weeks analyzing where I went wrong, what I could have done differently, whether there's still a chance. It looks like mourning, but it isn't. It's a mental negotiation with reality. Truly feeling would require accepting the ending. Thinking keeps the door half open. Another example. Someone dissatisfied with their professional life. Instead of feeling frustration, envy, regret, this person spends years thinking about hypothetical scenarios, future courses, abstract possibilities. This looks like planning. In reality, it's avoidance. Truly feeling would require admitting poorly made choices and real limits. Direct question. What are you avoiding feeling right now, exactly right now, while listening to this? Not in vague terms, but specifically. Which emotion, if clearly named, would make it impossible to continue the same way? That's where thinking enters as distraction. You may acknowledge that this makes sense and still resist. Thinking helps me understand. Understanding is not the same as integrating. You can intellectually understand an emotion for years without ever going through it. Integration requires contact, not explanation. There is also a secondary gain in overthinking that is rarely admitted. It preserves a self-image. While you are thinking, you don't have to act, you don't have to fail, you don't have to commit. You can keep seeing yourself as someone in process, reflective, complex. Feeling and acting break that image. They expose limits. Notice how people who feel more clearly tend to decide faster. Not because they are impulsive, but because they are not trapped in ambiguity. They know when something hurts, when something no longer works, when something is desired. Overthinking keeps everything suspended. Another important point. Culture reinforces this confusion. Thinking is valued. Feeling is seen as weakness or loss of control. So you learn to translate everything into thought. You intellectualize emotions to make them acceptable. But the cost is high. You lose access to direct emotional information, which is essential for internal orientation. Direct question. When was the last time you made a decision based on a clear feeling, not on a chain of arguments? Many people can't remember. That is not maturity, it is disconnection. Let's be precise. Underfeeling does not mean not having emotions. It means not allowing them to complete their cycle. They arise, but are quickly captured by thought. Instead of feeling sadness, you think about sadness. Instead of feeling anger, you think about whether you should feel anger. Instead of feeling desire, you analyze risks. The feeling never reaches the end of the cycle, and incomplete feelings do not disappear. They return as mental noise. Overthinking is the echo of unprocessed emotions. You might object, but feeling hurts. Yes, it does. And thinking hurts in another way, chronically, diffusely, exhaustingly. The difference is that the pain of feeling has direction and tends to transform. The pain of thinking is static. It keeps you busy. It does not move you. Another concrete example. Postponed decisions. People who overthink often say they need more clarity. But clarity does not come from more analysis. It comes from enough emotional contact to sustain a choice. You decide when you can tolerate losing something. Until you accept the possible loss, you think. Direct question. What would you have to lose if you decided now? What would you have to admit? That is what is being avoided. Do not confuse this with impulsivity. Feeling is not acting without criteria. It is acting based on real internal data, not infinite mental simulations. Thinking without feeling produces paralysis. Feeling without thinking produces chaos. The problem here is not thinking. It is using thinking to suppress feeling. If you observe honestly, you'll see that your periods of overthinking coincide with situations where something emotionally relevant is at stake: attachment, identity, self-worth, belonging. You don't overthink irrelevant things. You overthink where feeling would require change. And here is the point that usually causes the most discomfort. As long as you remain in this pattern, nothing fundamental changes. You can switch objects of thought, topics, people, but the mechanism will be the same. Thinking as escape. Real work begins when you reduce your tolerance for that escape. When you notice circular thinking and, instead of following it, ask, "What am I avoiding feeling right now?" This question does not bring comfort. It brings responsibility. Feeling will not save you. It will not immediately calm you. It will not give you ready answers, but it will put you in contact with internal reality in a less distorted way. And reality, even uncomfortable, is always more manageable than constant noise. In closing, it's important to be clear. Understanding this is not enough. Understanding is not comfort. Seeing the pattern does not dissolve the pattern. You are still responsible for interrupting the use of thought as anesthetic. That means accepting emotional discomfort without immediately turning it into analysis. You are not overthinking because you are too deep. You are overthinking because you are still unwilling to fully feel what is already there. And until that changes, your mind will remain occupied, not productive.